All right, so the next question is what are vector-based versus raster-based graphics? So that's another important concept that we have to be aware of when we are working in Photoshop. So the answer is really simple. Anything raster-based is made of pixels. Anything vector-based is not made of pixels, but it's based on math, no pixels. All right, so let's see out of everything we tried so far, if we can identify which one is raster and which one is vector. So I'm going to go back to Photoshop. And I'm going to zoom, like I have all the layers turned off except layer 0, and I'm going to start zooming in. I'm using the zoom tool, by the way. The shortcut for it is Z, and I'm zooming in and zooming in and zooming in. And once we zoom in enough, what are we looking at now? We're looking at pixels. So anytime you take a photo in Photoshop, that photo is made of pixels. That is a raster-based graphic. Now, on the other hand, one thing that is as a mark of something that is raster based in Photoshop is that I can edit it with tools that are painting tools such as the paintbrush. So if I go to the paintbrush tool and I'm going to increase the brush diameter that I have, so I'm going to go, let me just select a soft round brush. So here is general brushes, and I'm going to select the soft round brush, and I'm going to go and increase the brush size, let's say to 200, close to 200. So here's the brush that I have here, and I think I have the caps lock on, so that's why it wasn't showing me the diameter. And in my foreground color, I'm going to use blue, and I'm simply going to paint on layer 0 with that color. So I noticed there's a couple things I did not have. I was on the wrong tool, sorry. So here's the brush tool, and I'm going to switch again to the soft round brush, and the diameter is 200, and I'm going to start painting on the image with blue. So the fact that I'm able to paint on layer 0 like this, what I'm painting are pixels that are basically changing the color of the image. So that is a raster based technique. And I'm going to undo that twice. I'm going to click Command Z, Command Z. So when you paint with any tool, like there's a lot of tools we're going to learn that are painting or editing tools. All of these tools by nature are raster based because we're modifying the pixels, we're working with pixels. Now, on the other hand, I'm going to show you something that I will not be able to do, which is this. If I highlight the adjustment layer, I'm going to click at it. I need to see a white border around here. That's my adjustment layer here in saturation 1, and I see a white border around it. And I try to paint on it with the paintbrush tool. Photoshop will not allow me to do that. So if I click even and try, it will tell me could not rasterize because the pixel data of this layer is not directly something you can edit. Basically what Photoshop is telling you is that this layer, the adjustment layer, is not raster based. That layer is not made of pixels. That layer is vector based. So adjustment layers in Photoshop do not contain pixels. They are vector based, and that's why you cannot paint on them. So layer 0 and any duplicate of layer 0 is made of pixels, so they are raster based. But the adjustment layers are vector based. So how then can you explain this? What if I click here and start painting, and I'm going to switch to black and I'm going to start painting? Why then am I able to paint at this point like that? And I hope you guessed what's happening here. I am not painting on the adjustment layer, I am painting on the mask of the adjustment layer. So that's different. So this is me painting on the layer itself, and I cannot paint on the layer because the layer is vector based. But if you click at the mask of the adjustment layer, the mask is raster based. You can go back and paint on that mask. Now I'm going to undo this couple steps here because I don't want to change the mask. And I want you to know that when you create an adjustment layer automatically comes with a layer mask, and that layer mask is all white. We discussed that in our lesson 1. That is the correct mask we want to have. But the mask itself is made of pixels. So let's kind of dive a little bit deeper on this. I'm going to switch my view to the left panel mask by holding the Option key and click at it. And if I zoom in using the zoom tool, the more I zoom in, the more you're going to see what this mask is made of. It's made of pixels. Some of them are black, some of them are white, some of them are gray. The reason why they are gray here because I've added 2 pixels feathered to that mask. So if I zoom out a little bit and then select my brush, the same brush tool, and switch my foreground color here, I'm going to switch that to white. And then I'm going to paint an area like this on the mask with white. What am I doing here? I am changing what part of the layer is visible and what part of the layer is not visible. So if I go back and look at the layer, you're going to see that if I turn all layers off except this layer, here's that part of the layer now is visible. Why is that visible? Because I painted directly on the mask with white. So what I'm after is a very simple idea, which is the following. A layer mask is raster based. It's a grayscale image made of pixels that we can paint on it. But an adjustment layer is vector based. The adjustment layer itself is vector based. We cannot paint on it. And layer 0 is raster based. We can paint on it. So as you learn more and more about Photoshop, I know the idea of destructive and non-destructive vector and raster are all new. The goal is not to make you an expert on this now. I know you might have more questions. The goal is just to be aware of these terminologies, what they mean, so that as we progress in the class, you can see more and more of when we start making these differentiations between vector and raster, destructive and non-destructive. So I'm gonna pause for a minute, write a couple notes, and come back and read the notes with you. All right, so we discussed what are vector-based versus raster-based graphics. We said raster is made of pixels, vector is based on math, no pixels. Which of the following is raster versus vector? Layer 0. Layer 0 is raster. A layer mask. A layer mask is also raster. An adjustment layer is vector. The layer mask for the adjustment layer, which is all white, that is raster. So the only one out of all of these that is vector is the adjustment layer at this point. And then what is a good way to test if something or a layer is vector versus raster? It's really simple. Try to paint on it with the brush tool. The shortcut for the brush tool is the letter B. And then if you are able to paint on it, it's raster based. If not, it is vector based. And again, if you don't know the brush tool yet, don't worry about that. As we learn more, we're going to use it more often and things will make more sense. This is just to explain the term vector versus raster.